Welcome. We're back, and it's time for math. Ba-na-na-na-na. It's the math show for you. Hey, lucky you just tuned into this hot new television series starring you. Hey, we're back at it. We're back with math. We're talking today a continued conversation around units of measurement and the concept of conversion. But today we're going to talk about capacity. Great bunch of words. What does that mean? Man, am I so happy you asked that question? What does that mean? Well, let's break this down because I do like thinking about like what each one of these words really means because it helps us think about the math itself. One, let's talk about units. Those are parts of things or pieces of things, right? So a unit could be a part of something or a piece. I think I just said a piece of something. Measurement. That's, how we measure, like how we figure out size or distance or length or something like that, right? We measure it. You measure your shoe size. You have a measurement for the size shirt that you wear. There is a measurement for how large a car is, whatever it may be, right? So parts of these measurements is what we've been doing, and we've been doing so by conversion. Look at all these colors. No, I said look at all these colors. Look at them. Just kidding. Conversion, right? Or to convert, and that just means to change. And so this is the concept of how we're finding things that are equivalent. Yesterday, we did this journey, and what we talked about was the equivalence for something like if I had 1 foot, well, that was the same thing as 12 inches. And since I knew that, then it might be the question of like, whoa, well, if I had 15 feet, how many inches is that? Right. And so what that measurement, that unit of measurement we did yesterday was distance. We talked about distance. We talked about feet as in measurement, not at the bottom of your legs. We talked about inches. We talked about miles and yards. Those all measure distance, right? The distance from your house to the school. That's what apparently the school is like a weird, hi, I'm a school. I don't know what that is, but that's a school. The distance is, it could be measured in miles. If you live close, it might be measured in feet or yards. But that's a distance. And today what we're going to talk about is these parts, these pieces of these measurements, and we're going to convert them back and forth in terms of capacity. And capacity is size. Capacity is the same thing as volume. Capacity is how much does something hold or have. So now that I've colored this entire page with a bunch of things and circled things and drew arrows, we obviously know everything. Great, fun video. See you next time. Bye. Haha. I'm just kidding. That's not it. Let's talk about what all of this means. Like, what do we mean by capacity? Well, what we first are going to do is realize that our units of measurement will change from feet to gallons and quarts. We'll talk about that. It might even be pounds later when we start to do weight. But the fact is the steps don't. And if you remember yesterday, one of the things we talked about was finding these steps. One, we wanted to find the 1-to-many ratio, right? That was that thing where we made the T-chart. And I'll model this. We identified the rule and then we solved, right? These are the 3 steps. And we're going to do the exact same 3 steps today, but instead of using inches, feet, yards, miles, right? We're going to use capacity. And capacity, again, is like the size or the volume. So we're going to be talking about gallons. That can be abbreviated with a G. Gallons for, let's see, a good connection. One thing that would be a gallon might be milk at the store. If you ever go shopping, help the family go shop. Wow, what is that? That was supposed to be milk. The large container of milk is typically 2 gallons. The skinnier one is 1 gallon. So that gives you an idea, right, of capacity, volume, how much milk fits in this container. Well, it's 1 gallon or 2. So we're going to talk about gallons. We are going to talk about quarts. Quarts is tricky. We need QT like this for an abbreviation. Most commonly, it's not even super common, but I think if you've ever been at the store as well, I'm gonna try to connect this to grocery shopping today, and you've ever seen in the ice cream section, there's that really large bucket of ice cream, and usually it's like, I swear almost every time it's like the rainbow. That's a quart. That's a pretty common. What is that? A basket? Apparently that's ice cream. That's another connection. It's smaller than the gallon of milk, but it's still pretty large itself. And that was just a horrible example. So I apologize. We are also going to talk about pints. And so we abbreviate that with a P. And pints typically, usually you have these at home. If you think about the big drinking glasses you have when you get water, maybe one of the largest glasses that you might have, that's typically a pint. It's a little bit larger than your can of soda. Here's my can of soda. So it's a little bit bigger than that. So that gives you an idea of its capacity and its size, right? And you can see I'm actually going in descending volume. Gallons are the largest, and there's quarts, and then there are pints. And then from there, we are going to talk about cups, and that's a C. And if you ever help out in the kitchen or do anything, you'll see a lot of times there's measuring cups, and those are a little bit smaller than the pint, and the pint is a little bit smaller than the quart, and the quart is definitely a little bit smaller than the gallon. And then the final bit that we're going to put together with that is just understanding that 1 cup is equal to 8 ounces. Ounces. Here's the tricky one. Ounces, this word, we abbreviate with OZ. Obviously, that makes sense. Thank you, English. Thank you for making things complicated again. But we abbreviate ounces with this. And so then we measure all these things like liquid in terms of ounces. And so 1 cup is 8 ounces. To put that into perspective, the can of soda you buy at the store, if you drink it out of a can, it's supposed to be a can, that's typically 12 ounces. Actually, this is good. The pint, here's a good connection with a pint. Sorry, I didn't even think about this. The larger plastic bottles of like soda. Wow, why can I just not draw today? Well, I say that like I draw well every day. Man, that is horrible. But you know, the larger plastic bottles of soda usually buy, right? They're usually like $1.79 or something like that. That's usually a pint. So that's a little bit bigger than a can of soda. Great. I'm glad we put all this together. So now that we kind of have an idea of capacity, I want to talk about, again, what do we do when we talk about how to convert? When someone, you know, again, the random person that's always walking down the street and asking you questions says things like, oh, I have 6 quarts. How many pints is that? Right. And you're like, oh, I can totally tell you because random person on the street, I always want to tell you how to solve your math problems. And also, here's my next question. Why are you carrying all those quarts in your hand? So we want to know how to do this. Now, all of this is crazy. So I want to show you a really good tool to help you. And what this is known as is the big G. And the big G is very helpful when it comes to capacity. And I want to show you that big G. In fact, as I draw this, I wouldn't mind you draw it with us. I'll even ask that you pause the video at some point and draw this with us. So the big G starts with big G. There it is. Now, if you go back to this list and say, oh, I have a G, what does the G stand for? Oh, I should have used the same colors. Sorry. My G stands for gallons. And that's what this is. So this already shows me right now I have 1 gallon, right? Because there's just 1 G. I only drew 1. It's 1 big G. And what we're going to learn about this gallon is that 1 gallon is equal to, inside this gallon, look what I do. I'm going to draw 1, 2, 3, 4 quarts. So 1 gallon is actually equal to 4 quarts. Okay, so now we can already start to see the connections that go with that. And then inside each quart, we go to the next level, we have pints. So I'm gonna put a P in each. Okay. And this again is helping us see our one to many and understand all these conversions. So in this case, when I have 1 quart, that is going to be the same thing as 2 pints. Okay, right? So again, we have 1G, that's the big G, that's the gallon. Inside that gallon, it's 4 quarts. Inside each quart is 2 pints. You can also see if you counted all the pints, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, then that also shows you that there's 8 pints in 1 gallon. And then if we go into the pint, in each pint, there are 2 cups. So I'm going to draw 2 C's in each one. Okay. So why this is helpful. Oh, and then that other, oh yeah. So what did I say? Let's keep the same color. So 1 pint PT is equal to 2 cups. And then again, if you remember, 1 cup is equal to 8 ounces. Okay. So again, if we draw this, it really helps us make sense of our one-to-many ratios. It tells us in 1 gallon, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 cups. So that is what is going to get us what we need in order to convert there. So now that we know that, we can kind of go back to our steps, right? Someone comes along, right? The good old guy walking down the street, and he says, "Oh, well, I have 10 pints, good sir." What? I don't even know why that's his voice. Can you please tell me how many quarts that is? Sorry, I apologize for today. I don't even know what's gotten into me. But yeah, that's the question, right? We have 10 pints. Well, how many quarts is that? Well, we can actually use this to help us. And by this, I mean the big G. But we also want to remember our steps, right? Step 1, I want to make my one too many. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to build my T-chart here, and I'm going to put pints here and quarts here. And I got to figure out which one is it. Is it 1 pint equals many quarts, or 1 quarts equals many pints? And you can see actually over here, it tells me that. And I can also look in my thing, in my picture, 1 quart, 1 Q, right? 1 Q or QT, abbreviation making life harder, equals 2 pints because there's 2 P's inside of the Q. So there's my one to many. And then I can just think about, well, okay, well, now what do I know? Well, I know there's 10 pints, so I'm going to put 10 here. And what I need to solve is quarts. So this is where I can use my rule. All right, I'm going to go over here and say, well, what's my rule here? What am I trying to solve? If I start at pints and I get to quarts, right? So pints, I'm going to call that P. I notice I'm getting smaller, so I'm definitely dividing. Because remember, we're finding equivalent. So it's only going to be division or multiplication. And 2 divided by 2 equals 1. So when I take my pints and I divide it by 2, I get my quarts. And so now I can just substitute and solve, which there's a lot on this page. I should have done this on another page, but that's okay. So let's substitute and solve. Here's my whoa. Wow. Oh boy. Oh, things moving everywhere. Hold on. Whole screen falling apart. Here's my equation. And so if I substitute, well, I know my P now, it's 10 divided by 2 equals Q. And so 10 divided by 2 just means, oh, when I have 10 pints, I get 5 quarts. So I can put my answer up here. And we did all this work for that wonderful gentleman walking down the street carrying 10 pints and said to you, "Hey, can you help me?" I think that's definitely a different voice than the first guy. So I don't know. I got to work on my random math man on the road voice. But you can tell him, "Yeah, dude, I got you. 10 pints is equal to 5 quarts." So that's where it's going to go. All right, great. Another page full of craziness. Let's slow this down and do another one. So let's move on to the next part. Again, if you think about the steps, 1, find your one to many. Okay. 2, find the rule. Rule, it's just 1, it's not plural. And then 3, solve. And then I would say, like, if you need to, I take that back. Definitely make your big G. And that actually reminds me, if you haven't written this in your journal yet, we're going to go back to this page, and I'm going to have you pause the video right now to make sure that you draw this big G in your journal. So you just paused and did that. Okay, now that you paused and did that, let's go back. So I like to make my own one real quick. I don't want it too small because I don't want to get confused. And then there's 2 pints in each quart. And maybe I should have made my pints a little bit larger because I now have to get in there and squeeze in 2 cups into each pint. Okay. And then here's the skill again, right? Oh, good sir. What? I'm sorry. That is a horror. I got to quit that one. But here's the question. Let's say we have 15 cups and we need to know, well, how many ounces is that? Okay. Well, step 1 to many. So I'm going to make my T-chart. Remember, I'm not even thinking about this stuff yet. I'm just thinking about cups and ounces. What do I know? Is it 1 cup as many ounces or 1 ounce as many cups? Well, that information I did not write on this big, but if you remember, 1 cup is equal to 8 ounces. So there is my one to many. What I can say here is I know if I have 1 cup, I have 8 ounces. Now I'm going to look at what I know. So I come up here and ask, well, what do I know? Do I know cups or ounces? Well, I don't know ounces. It's empty. I do know cups. It's 15. So I'm going to put 15 here. Now let's find our rule, right? The rule is going to state here then, if I notice I start in cups, so cups, and I go to ounces, I get bigger. So I've got to be multiplying. So if I take my cups and I multiply them by 8, I'm going to get my ounces. So now I can just plug and play to solve for 15, which means I'm going to substitute C for 15. So 15 times 8 equals my answer. Well, let's see. 10 times 8 is 80, and 5 times 8 is 40. So that's 120 ounces. And that would be my answer. 15 cups, 120 ounces. So I just solved. So again, always make your one to many. I noticed yesterday a lot of you were not doing that with your work. You were like trying to just jump right in, and that made it really difficult because then you couldn't make sense of the rule because you didn't know what you were looking for. So remember, one to many. Then put in your information into the data table and solve. Let's do one more and then we'll kind of call it a day. So again, steps. Let's do that. One to many. Find your rule and then solve. And it is very helpful to have a big G on your paper. That's why I say just maybe draw it once at the beginning and then keep going back to it. Although the more you practice it, the more you're going to remember what it is, and that's helpful too. Pint, and CC. Those are cups. I don't know why I keep having to narrate that for you. Great. And then here's the question. Someone says, it's always someone just asking, isn't it? I have 5 gallons and I need to know how many pints is that? Okay, cool. Step 1, one to many. T-chart, gallons, pints. Okay, well, what's my one to many? Well, I can see here in my picture, I only have 1 G. I only have 1 gallon. So the gallon must be the 1. And then how many pints are in there? Well, let's see. I'm going to count the green peas, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I hope you did not laugh when I said green peas. Okay, come on. We'll get there. So I have 1 gallon is equal to 8 pints. Now I'm going to insert my own information to help me with the rule. I know I have gallons. What I don't know is pints. So let's set up the rule. I'm going gallons, and I'm going from gallons to pints, so I'm getting larger. So gallons times 8, because notice that 1 times 8 is 8, is going to get me my pint. Well, now I substitute and solve. Instead of G, I'm going to put in 5. The rule stays the same, and that means that P is equal to 40. So I have 40 pints when I have 5 gallons. And that is our work. And I'm going to stop us there. I'm going to kind of let you think about what you need to do. If you need to, go back and think about writing down this information in a journal, please pause the video and do so. If you need to think about the steps, I would really stop and make sure I'm doing that. And then again, it's practice over and over and over again. Notice my units of measurements will change, but the steps don't. Yesterday, we did the exact same thing with inches and feet and yards. So it worked. Today, we're going to do gallons and cups and quarts, and it's going to work. And tomorrow, we're actually going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to talk about weight. So we're going to be talking about pounds, and we're going to be talking about tons, and we're going to be talking about other things. So that's all I got for that. I don't know why I had to make that dramatic. You are the best. We appreciate you. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you next time.